Zarovix adjusted her quantum camouflage field for the third time that rotation, her crystalline appendages trembling with what her species called anticipatory resonance, what humans might call nervousness. After 12 stellar cycles, as the Galactic Council's premier xenanthropologist, she had thought herself prepared for anything. She had studied the warrior clans of Proxima Centauri, documented the silicon-based civilizations of the Crab Nebula, and even survived an encounter with the notorious thought clouds of Betelgeuse. But humans were different. Her observation pod hovered silently above what the locals called Minneapolis, its advanced stealth systems rendering it completely invisible to conventional detection methods. At least, that's what the technical specifications claimed. Yet somehow, a small human child was pointing directly at her position, tugging at their parent's sleeve, and exclaiming about the funny shimmer in the sky. Impossible. The quantum camouflage utilized principles that shouldn't even be comprehensible to a pre-stellar civilization, let alone detectable by their unaided organic visual processors. Field log entry 2749. Zarovix dictated, her crystalline structure vibrating at the precise frequency needed to activate her recording systems. Humans continue to defy standard classification protocols. Despite operating with primarily chemical-based computation systems, what they call brains, they display inexplicable abilities to detect anomalies that should be beyond their sensory capabilities. She paused her recording as she noticed a group of humans gathering below, several now pointing phones at her position. Her structural integrity field quivered with disbelief as she watched them taking selfies with the distortion in the sky caused by her supposedly undetectable ship. Addendum to entry 2749. Humans appear to respond to potentially threatening unknown phenomena by documenting themselves in proximity to it. Previous species study indicates this behavior should be impossible. Threat response patterns in all known sentient species fall into three categories: flight, fight, or freeze. Humans instead appear to have developed a fourth response: social media content creation. The situation deteriorated further when a human wearing what appeared to be a food service uniform, Dave's Hot Dogs emblazoned across the front, began using her ship's distortion effect as a marketing opportunity, claiming the mysterious sky phenomenon was a sign that his establishment's new Ghost Pepper Challenge was out of this world. Zarovix had studied human languages extensively, and she still couldn't determine if the man was being literal or engaging in something called wordplay, another uniquely human cognitive anomaly. Her superior, Grand Observer Klaxon, had warned her about humans. They operate on dream logic, he had said, his crystalline form displaying the color patterns of deep concern. They can't perceive the quantum realm like we do, yet they've discovered quantum mechanics through mathematics. They can't naturally process complex astronomical calculations, yet they reached their moon using slide rules and computers less powerful than our food synthesizers. They shouldn't be able to survive their own technological development, yet they've turned their most devastating weapons into power sources. She had dismissed his concerns as overly dramatic at the time. Now, watching a human teenager attempt to live-stream her cloaked ship while simultaneously participating in something called a TikTok dance challenge, she began to understand his concern. Field log entry 2750. Humans appear to possess a form of collective intelligence that operates independently of any recognized neural networking principles. When one human notices an anomaly, others are drawn to it not through any detectable communication method, but through what they call vibes and trending topics. The crowd below had grown. Someone had set up what appeared to be a small food distribution operation, a hot dough cart, and was doing brisk business. Another human had brought audio equipment and was performing what they called sick beats, inspired by the alien wave patterns in the sky. A local news crew had arrived, and a reporter was interviewing a self-proclaimed UFO expert who was completely wrong about everything except for the fact that there was, indeed, an alien spacecraft present. Zarovix made a decision that would forever change the course of galactic history. She needed to understand this species better, and that meant doing something no xenoanthropologist had done in 10,000 years of field research. She was going to break protocol and initiate early contact. As she deactivated her quantum camouflage, revealing her crystalline observation pod in all its advanced technological glory, she recorded one final note. Field log, entry 2751. May the first ones forgive me for what I'm about to do. But in the name of science, I must understand how a species that still thinks digital watches are a pretty neat idea has managed to consistently void the laws of probability, physics, and common sense. The humans below cheered as her ship became visible. Someone shouted first rounds on Dave. Another person had somehow already designed and was selling T-shirts with a surprisingly accurate depiction of her observation pod and the slogan Minneapolis, where even aliens stop for hot dogs. As Zarovix initiated landing procedures, she realized that her superiors had been right about one crucial detail. Humans were, indeed, the most terrifying species in the known galaxy. Not because they were powerful or advanced, but because they were completely, utterly, and fundamentally impossible to predict. And as any scientist knew, an unpredictable variable in the universe's equation was the most dangerous thing of all. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so chaotic. Representatives from 17 different species gesticulated, vibrated, pulsed, or otherwise expressed their agitation through their respective biological or mechanical means of communication. At the center of it all stood Zarovix, her crystalline form cycling through colors that indicated everything from embarrassment to defiance. You deliberately violated first contact protocols, thundered High Chancellor Ixo, their plasma-based form crackling with electromagnetic disapproval. And for what? Because humans were taking selfies with your cloaked ship. With respect, High Chancellor, Zarovix responded, maintaining the steady blue-green hue of scientific objectivity. The incident provided invaluable data about human behavior patterns. Their response to unknown phenomena is unprecedented in galactic history. Ambassador Karoth, a being composed entirely of living mathematics, projected a series of equations that translated roughly to extreme skepticism. According to your report, within 6 hours of revealing yourself, humans had created 3 new food items named after your ship, established a weekly festival called Space Crystal Saturdays, and somehow turned your quantum field distortion effect into a popular dance move. The dance is quite accurate, actually, Zarovix admitted. They managed to replicate the exact frequency patterns of quantum displacement through purely physical movement. It should be mathematically impossible. The council chamber erupted again. A representative of the silicon hive mind began stress fracturing. 2 members of the energy collective merged in agitation. The quantum ghost delegates simply phased out of reality for a few moments to process their confusion. First speaker Urax, the oldest and wisest of the council members, raised all 7 of their probability warping appendages for silence. Perhaps, they suggested, their voice resonating at the universal frequency of reason, we should focus on the immediate concern. Humans are now aware of extraterrestrial life. Protocol dictates we must either establish formal diplomatic relations or implement immediate memory suppression procedures. About that, Zarovix's color shifted to the ultraviolet spectrum of acute discomfort. Memory suppression may not be viable. Humans have already incorporated the entire incident into something they call meme culture. The information has achieved what they term viral status. The viral intelligence representative immediately quarantined themselves. Furthermore, she continued, they've begun a process they call merchandising. My observation pod's image is now on everything from clothing to recreational water vessels. Someone has written a pop song about the encounter that, despite containing numerous scientific inaccuracies, is surprisingly catchy. First speaker Urax's probability warping appendages trembled. Then we have no choice. We must initiate formal diplomatic contact. Surely, when faced with representatives of an advanced galactic civilization, humans will respond with appropriate gravitas. 3 standard rotations later, the Council watched in collective horror as humans responded to the arrival of their diplomatic delegation by immediately organizing what they called a block party. The carefully choreographed arrival of the Council's most impressive ship was upstaged by what humans termed a DG battle. The delegation's attempt to present the grand technological achievements of galactic civilization was derailed when a human teenager pointed out that their quantum computational matrix looked kind of like a fancy Rubik's Cube and proceeded to solve its outer configuration through what they called muscle memory. Field Report, Diplomatic Mission Day 1, recorded Ambassador Karoth. Humans have responded to our display of faster-than-light technology by asking if they can soup it up. When told our ships operate by bending the fabric of spacetime, they suggested adding flame decals would make the spatial distortions look cooler. One human, after consuming a beverage called a Monster Energy drink, submitted a detailed proposal for combining our antimatter drive with something called a monster truck. The design is terrifying in its plausibility. The situation reached its crescendo when the delegation attempted to explain the complex political structure of the Galactic Council. A human political science student in the audience raised their hand and suggested that the Council's current method of achieving consensus through probability manipulation could be improved by implementing something called a ranked choice voting system, combined with Robert's Rules of Order. The truly disturbing part was that they were right. We must face facts. Zarovix addressed the emergency council session, called after the diplomatic mission's hasty retreat. Humans don't merely think outside what we consider to be the box. They appear to be fundamentally unaware that boxes are supposed to exist at all. But how? Demanded High Chancellor Ixo. They're still using combustion engines. They haven't even unified their planetary government. Their primary information exchange network is filled with pictures of small felines. First speaker Urax's appendages waved in the pattern that indicated deep contemplation. Perhaps that is precisely why they are so dangerous. They haven't progressed far enough to know what's impossible, so they keep doing impossible things. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that didn't recognize impossibility as a concept was, by definition, capable of anything. There's more, Zarovix added, her crystalline form shifting to the rare frequency of existential concern. They've already begun what they call reverse engineering. Not of our technology. That would be concerning but understandable. No, they're attempting to reverse engineer our entire approach to physics. One human scientist suggested that our understanding of quantum mechanics seems unnecessarily complicated and proposed what they called a workaround. The quantum ghost delegate phased back into reality just long enough to faint. As the Council debated their next move, a message arrived from Earth. The humans, it seemed, had already drafted a proposed interstellar trade agreement. They were offering to exchange something called memes for faster-than-light technology. Attached was an image of Zarovix's original observation pod with text reading "Feel cute, might violate first contact protocols later." The truly terrifying part, several younger Council members had already begun sharing it. The Galactic Council's archive chamber was normally a place of serene contemplation. Today, however, it hummed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to share their species' encounters with humans. First Speaker Urax had called this unprecedented session after receiving disturbing reports from multiple observation posts on Earth. Let the record show, Urax's harmonics resonated through the crystalline chamber, that this is an informal gathering to assess the full scope of the human situation. Admiral Kavax of the Meridian Fleet was the first to step forward, their bioluminescent patterns displaying clear signs of trauma. 3 cycles ago, my stealth cruiser observed a human military exercise. They were practicing something called tactical gardening. The chamber's ambient lighting flickered with collective confusion. At first, we thought it was harmless, humans manipulating local flora for sustenance. Then we realized they were weaponizing plants, not with genetic engineering or biochemical enhancement, but through something they called aggressive topiary. They've developed military applications for hedges. The silicon hive mind representative extruded a concerned crystalline formation. Elaborate. They can turn any terrain into a defensive position using nothing but careful plant placement and what they call spite-based landscaping. We watched them create an impenetrable fortress using decorative shrubs and something called passive-aggressive water features. Zarovix's data crystals pulse with recognition. This aligns with my observations. Humans have an inexplicable ability to weaponize seemingly benign objects and concepts. They've turned their planet's bacterial defense mechanisms into a food preservation technique they call pickling. They deliberately infect milk with specific microorganisms to create cheese, and consider the more dangerous strains delicacies. A representative from the Energy Collective manifested a worried spark pattern. That's nothing. We monitored their information networks and discovered they've weaponized boredom itself. They call it bureaucracy. It's devastatingly effective. First Speaker Urax's appendages twisted in contemplation. Perhaps most concerning is their relationship with their planet's indigenous life forms. Observer Report 47 Beta, please proceed. A holographic projection materialized, showing a human residence. A small furry quadruped, what humans called a cat, knocked a container off an elevated surface while maintaining direct eye contact with its human caretaker. As you can see, Verax continued, humans have formed symbiotic relationships with creatures that regularly display open hostility toward them. They not only tolerate this behavior, but find it endearing. It gets worse, added Zarovix. They've formed similar bonds with creatures called dogs, predators they've selectively bred to be emotionally dependent on them. They refer to these creatures as good boys and good girls, while knowing full well they've descended from wolves. The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. A temporal physicist floated forward, their time-shifted form showing unusual signs of agitation. We must discuss their relationship with probability. Our studies show they consistently achieve outcomes that should be statistically impossible. They call it getting lucky or beating the odds. They appear to treat probability as more of a suggestion than a mathematical law. Indeed, Zarovix's crystals shifted to academic orange. A human survey team once discovered one of our quantum prediction engines. Instead of studying it, they used it as a paperweight. The device began generating more accurate predictions afterward. We still don't understand how or why. The quantum ghost delegate, who had finally learned to stay materialized during discussions about humans, contributed their findings. They started exploring quantum mechanics not through advanced technology, but through something called thought experiments. They're reaching correct conclusions about the fundamental nature of reality through what they call educated guesses and vibes. First speaker Urax gestured for silence as the chamber once again descended into chaos. Most troubling is their approach to what they call scientific method. Unlike every other known species, they appear to actively seek out ways to prove themselves wrong. They celebrate failed experiments as much as successful ones, calling it learning from mistakes. They made it into space, Admiral Kovacs added, their bioluminescence pulsing with distress, using machines that had a significant chance of explosion. They called these early attempts controlled explosions, though our analysis suggests the control part was often optimistic at best. A data analyst from the Silicon hive mind projected their findings. They've turned their most devastating weapons into sources of power, their deadliest poisons into medicine, and their greatest failures into what they call learning experiences. They refer to this process as failing upward and appear to have institutionalized it. Zarovix's form shifted to the ultraviolet of revelation. I believe I understand now. Every other species in the galaxy evolved to avoid danger, to minimize risk, to follow logical progressions of technological development. Humans run straight at problems, armed with nothing but audacity and what they called duct tape. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that treated the impossible as a challenge, that saw rules as optional, that turned failures into advantages. Such a species couldn't be controlled, couldn't be predicted, couldn't be contained. First speaker Urax's appendages formed the pattern that hadn't been seen in 10,000 years, the signal for existential threat. We must decide now. Do we attempt to guide them, knowing they will likely ignore our guidance and do something impossible anyway? Or do we watch, wait, and hope they don't decide to get creative with the fundamental forces of the universe? Before anyone could respond, an urgent message arrived from Earth. Humans had somehow discovered the principle behind the Council's quantum communication network. Not through study or reverse engineering, but because someone typed, "What if we tried this low?" in something called a group chat. They were now offering to help optimize it. The quantum ghost delegate didn't even bother to rematerialize after fainting this time. The breaking point came, ironically, because of coffee. The Galactic Council had been monitoring human advancement with increasing concern when a small research outpost near Jupiter detected an anomaly. Humans had somehow created a portable wormhole generator, not through advanced quantum engineering or dark matter manipulation, but by accidentally overbrewing something called gas station coffee in a malfunctioning vending machine. This defies all known laws of physics, declared Chief Scientist Enx 427, their binary form flickering with agitation. They created a temporary space-time rupture using burned beans and hot water. First speaker Urax reviewed the data with all 7 probability appendages trembling. How did they respond to this achievement? Enx 427's lights dimmed in disbelief. They posted a 1-star review complaining that the coffee was a bit strong and slightly metaphysical. The council chamber erupted. The Energy Collective representatives began stress sparking. The silicon hive mind started an emergency backup cycle. Even the usually unflappable quantum ghosts were visible without trying. That's not all. Zarovic's added, her crystalline form pulsing with urgency. They've begun experimenting with what they call extreme coffee brewing. One human suggested trying to recreate the effect using something called a pumpkin spice blend. First speaker Urax's appendages twisted into the sacred pattern of absolute emergency. If they combine their accidental wormhole technology with their seasonal flavoring variants, the fabric of space-time itself could be compromised, completed High Chancellor Ixo. And knowing humans, they'd probably try to sell tickets to the resulting interdimensional rift. The situation deteriorated further when humans discovered that certain combinations of energy drinks and expired breakfast pastries could create temporary quantum tunneling effects. They called it the convenience store special and were already organizing competitive events around it. "We must act," declared Admiral Kovacs, their bioluminescence bright with determination. The Alliance fleet stands ready to implement containment protocols. The resulting show of force was meant to be intimidating. 1,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships appearing simultaneously in Earth's orbit, their quantum cannons charged, their probability drives humming with universe-bending power. The humans organized a tailgate party. "What's a tailgate party?" First speaker Urax had asked, moments before learning that humans had somehow turned the most impressive military display in galactic history into an excuse for outdoor cooking and recreational activities. "They're grilling hamburgers in the shadow of our doomsday weapons," reported a bewildered fleet commander. "Someone is attempting to calculate the optimal angle for launching something called a football through our force fields. They're treating our strategic formation as a venue." Within hours, humans had created a drinking game based on spotting different classes of alien warships, started a betting pool on which ship had the best light show, organized an impromptu concert using the fleet's electromagnetic interference as a bass line, developed 15 new recipes specifically for apocalypse barbecues, started 3 different social media challenges involving their children pointing out tactical weaknesses in the fleet's formation. The final straw came when a group of human engineers, working on what they called their lunch break, casually pointed out that the fleet's quantum barrier technology could be improved using principles derived from their study of soap bubbles. They were correct. The fleet retreated in carefully coordinated panic, leaving behind only a few thousand commemorative T-shirts reading, "I survived the space invasion block party," and several highly classified technical documents that had somehow been turned into takeout menus. As the Council gathered for an emergency session, one thing became terrifyingly clear. Traditional containment strategies wouldn't work on a species that treated existential threats as entertainment opportunities. They needed a new approach. They needed it fast. Because humans had just posted their first job listings for interdimensional barista. And the applications were already rolling in. The Galactic Council's solution, when it finally came, was as elegant as it was unprecedented. They officially classified Earth as a controlled chaos zone and established the first ever protocol for managing impossible species, PMIS. The protocol's first line read, "When dealing with humans, assume they will do the impossible and plan accordingly." It's not perfect, admitted first speaker Urax to the assembled council, their probability appendages arranged in the pattern of resigned acceptance. But since we can't prevent humans from doing the impossible, we might as well try to direct where they do it. The new approach was revolutionary. Instead of trying to contain humanity, the Council began presenting them with impossible problems, carefully steering their chaos towards productive ends. Need to stabilize a dying star. Tell humans it can't be done. Within a week, some teenager in their parents' garage would develop a solution involving rubber bands and something called WD-40. Having trouble with interdimensional parasites. Casually mention it on human social media. Before long, someone would develop a repellent spray made from hot sauce and quantum mathematics. It's like having a controlled nuclear reaction. Zarovix explained to her fellow xenanthropologists. Except instead of atoms splitting, it's humans splitting the difference between possible and impossible. The system worked surprisingly well. Humans got to solve impossible problems. The galaxy got solutions to previously intractable issues. And everyone pretended that this was totally normal and not at all terrifying. The Council even developed a classification system for human innovations. Class 1. Probably won't break physics. Class 2. Will break physics, but in a useful way. Class 3. Will break physics because someone said it couldn't be done. Class 4. Started as a joke but somehow works anyway. Class 5. We don't understand how or why it works, but we're too afraid to turn it off. The humans, for their part, seemed to genuinely enjoy their new role as the galaxy's problem solvers. They approached each impossible challenge with what they called "hold my beer" energy, a phrase that now required mandatory evacuation protocols whenever uttered near sensitive equipment. Perhaps most remarkably, they began solving problems no one had even thought to ask about. A human child's science fair project accidentally resolved a 1,000-year philosophical debate among the silicon hive mind. A misread cooking recipe somehow optimized the Energy Collective's entire power distribution network. The truly fascinating part, Zarovix noted in her final report to the Council, is that humans don't seem to realize they're special. They think every species approaches problems by asking, "What if we tried this?" and then actually trying it, regardless of how many laws of physics say they shouldn't. First Speaker Urax, in their last official statement, before retiring to a quiet dimension where humans hadn't yet learned to visit, summed it up best. The galaxy feared humanity would destroy everything. Instead, they're fixing everything, not because they know how, but because no one told them they couldn't. And so a new age of galactic civilization began. The Council learned to phrase its announcements carefully, knowing that somewhere on Earth, a human would read "physically impossible" as "interesting challenge." They established new departments specifically for reviewing human solutions to make sure they wouldn't accidentally unravel the space-time continuum again. As for the humans, they kept doing what they'd always done, pushing boundaries, ignoring impossibilities, and treating the fundamental laws of the universe as more of a friendly suggestion than an absolute rule. They even started a social media account for the Galactic Council. It gained 10 million followers in its first week. The account's bio read, "Managing the impossible, since humans showed up and made everything weird." It was, like most things involving humans, simultaneously terrifying and wonderful, just the way they liked it.